Retail service workers of Reddit. What's the best instant karma you've seen happen to a rude customer? Worked at a telecom in Canada. I am no longer an employee, thank God. Lady comes in with a broken iPhone, is demanding to get a new one for free. If you don't know, in Canada the iPhone 6s is going for about $400 upfront on a 2-year contract at a minimum $80 plan. She had a good plan, but wanted it for free. She called up our loyalty team in store and spent the next 2 hours screaming at them. Finally, they agree to a deal, and she is getting it for $0. She looks at me and goes, I do not want a case. And Apple Care is a scam. We work on commission. So this essentially meant I was getting nothing and ruining my numbers. She keeps telling me to hurry up through the setup, and I was trying to get them out of the store with everything transferred over and set up. She grabs the phone and starts marching off, saying I was a terrible employee. She gets 3 steps out of the store and drops the phone. Shattered screen and white screen of death. She ran back in asking what I can do. I shrug and went, sorry, but Apple Care sure would have helped, eh? Edit, the cell phone dream got me gold. Thank you, kind stranger. As a teenager I was working part-time at a convenience store. I was being trained by the late night cashier. This dude comes in and grabs a bunch of cans of vegetables and such, and comes to the counter and stacks the cans in a very specific way, like a weird kind of pyramid on the counter. As the experienced cashier, my trainer, takes each can off the pyramid and brings it up. She reaches the end of the stack and we realize that the weirdo has his big dig out and has it laying on the counter behind the cans. Without saying a word, the trainer grabs one of the big heavy metal cans of beans and slams it down as hard as she can on the guy's big dig. He screamed an incredible scream of searing pain, grabbed his big dig, and ran out of the store. She to me, calmly, you get all kinds on the late shift. Standing at the counter of the pizza place I work at, lady storms in and slams a pizza down on the counter. This isn't the ducking pizza I ordered. What the hell are you going to do about? She asked. I look at the pizza, then at my buddy Nick, and turn back to her and say, nothing. She then goes on a long rant telling how we are going to be fired, how stupid and incompetent we were. She actually told me I must be retarded. Then asked why the hell we weren't going to do anything. I said because that pizza came from the pizza shop across the street. I think she actually managed to shrink in size and slink out looking so pathetic and beaten I almost felt bad for laughing till tears dripped down my face as she slunk off. Worked at Best Buy 10 or so years ago. This happened on Black Friday. Most of the customers were in bad moods since they'd been waiting hours to come in and stand in more lines. But this one lady was a raging itch. After yelling at everyone in my department about how she needed the laptop that was on sale despite it being sold out, she proceeds to tell us she'll have the store closed down because she works with the city and knows the fire marshal and we have too many people in the store. So she calls him. We tell her to leave, and nothing happens to the store. However, we called them as well to report what she'd said, and she got fired from her job for abuse of power. Working the window at McDonald's late night. Guy orders whatever and pulls up to the window. I'm cooking and handling the window, so I wasn't there when the customer pulled up. When I walked up to the window, I didn't see the ducker with trash in his lap. I open the window to take his card cash and he throws a bag of trash at me. I take a step back, bothered that I just got trash thrown at me, and I watch his car speed off. I'm pissed, but there's nothing I can do. A couple seconds later I hear a small bang of metal on metal. I walk to the lobby and look out the windows. The douchebag slammed into a police cruiser who was about to loop around and use the drive-thru himself. Of course I also went to tell the officer what just happened inside. I work at an auto parts store. This one guy stole some $60 headlights and literally sprinted out the door. We went to look outside to try and get his license plate, just in time to see him speed off, hit a curb, and blow out his tire. Called the cops and the dumbass got arrested and had to have his car towed. More than a few decades ago I worked at Denny's. I had 2 male customers that decided to dine in Ash. Got their license plate number and reported it to the cops and jokingly mentioned that they didn't even tip. Later that night they got pulled over for DUI. Cops recognized license plate number from the report. Brought them both back to the restaurant and forced them to pay the bill. After he was done paying, the cop just stood there and looked at them and said, "Well." The guy sheepishly handed me my tip. Guy comes in and is being a complete asshole. Not wanting to show ID to buy beer even though he looked 20 at the oldest. Constantly yelling and swearing. He also had parked in the handicap spot despite not having handicap tags or plates on his car. One of my regular customers, who is the sheriff's deputy, was also in the store. Saw how the guy was acting. Saw where he was parked. Went out. Got his ticket book. And wrote the guy a ticket. Guy realized he wasn't getting his beer. Went outside to find he was getting ticketed. I could not stop laughing. I worked at a restaurant that was very popular for brunch and Mother's Day was probably our busiest day of the year. I had a customer call the evening before and asked for a table for 6 and he was incredibly rude when I informed him that this would simply be an impossibility. He kept getting more and more worked up, asking me to speak to my manager. At first I didn't want to pass the phone over. My manager wasn't the nicest guy and we were in the middle of a busy dinner shift, but my manager came up behind me and demanded to know why I had been on the phone for so long. I was like, "Duck it. This customer isn't going to listen to me anyways," and gave the phone to Mac. Mac asked how he could help. Listened for about 15 seconds before telling this dude something like, "So you're tying up my hostess in the middle of dinner even though she's already told you nicely that we can't fit you and your goddamn family in the night before our busiest day of the year? Duck your buddy." And hung up the phone. Working drive-through at a Tim Hortons and some asshole in a massive black truck parked too far away from the window and expected me to lean super far out to give him his change. He was real impatient and just really rude. I just shook my head and so he gets all pissed off and finally gets out of the truck and the door shut behind him. It was locked and he sat there for like 15 minutes and we had to call a tow truck. Sure, it pissed off everyone behind him, but at least they were all pissed off at him and not us. He acted like it was the biggest embarrassment of his life. Warehouse worker here. Customers have to show a card to shop. And even though we're not technically a grocery store, we don't allow pets. One dude tried to power walk past the employee at the entrance door holding a big pit bull puppy on a leash. We stopped him and told him he couldn't bring his dog inside and he lost it. He's our best customer and he's here 5 times a week and he owns stock. Blah. Whatever. He demanded to know why we don't allow dogs. We explained how it's a food safety issue, especially with an untrained puppy. At this point our manager came over and just waved him through. BC no backbone customers always right. Well, not even 5 minutes later this dog squats in the middle of the main aisle and pees, followed by poop. The man turned so red and dragged the dog towards the exit, abandoning his groceries. We stopped him and asked him nicely to please clean up after his pup. That's the reason we don't allow them. So, I work at hotel's front desk. One day we had an Armenian guest who was claiming the room was not up to his standards and decided to make a big deal about it the next morning. He was so rude to the point of almost making a co-worker cry of desperation because she refused to compensate the night as his arguments seemed really fake and invalid. Once he saw he was not going to get nothing back, he threw his receipt on the floor and powered walked his way out into a very clean glass door that was recently cleaned. His sunglasses broke, causing him a small cut on the upper part of his nose. My co-worker and I couldn't stop laughing the second he walked out, even more mad. I was a cashier at a grocery store. This guy with a full cart itched and bullied employees until he was allowed to use my express checkout because he didn't want to wait in the regular lines. And my line only had 2 people in it. As soon as my floor manager allowed him and he had his cart unloaded, a tiny old lady with a walker who could barely stand got in line behind him. Everyone gave him dirty looks. He realized he ducked up and tried to make a joke about it. Dead silence. I hope his saved time was worth being an asshole. Lady lays into me for the amount of the bill. Called me every bad word in the English language. Says we overbilled her. She requested I go through her order. Come to find out we underbilled her by a $1,000 due to misplaced zero. The silence on the other line was so beautiful. Was working at a restaurant and there was this family who were extremely trashy and didn't look like they had a lot of money despite ordering a bunch of expensive steaks and drinking a bunch of drinks. They were rude the whole time, treating me like I was their butler or slave. Then asked for a manager to tell the manager that their steaks tasted rotten after they finished, and their drinks didn't taste like they had any alcohol in them. Again. Finished. Just trying to get free food. My manager noticed the way they were treating me and knew they were full of shit and refused to comp their meal like they were demanding. They began yelling and cussing at him and me and ended up trying to leave without paying. Only to have their car not start in the parking lot, and my manager called the police and one of them got arrested for disorderly conduct and drug possession, and the rest ended up walking after having their car towed. I was waiting at a hotel reception while a young staff member checked me in. A really obnoxious woman flounced over, interrupted what the girl was doing and proceeded to itch about the standard of the kettle in her room. She ranted on and on about only having a normal kettle until I told her to wise up and get in bloody line behind me. She shouted that she had been traveling all day and that the room was not a suitable standard. I pointed out it was a ducking airport hotel. We'd all been traveling all day and that she should just get lost. By now the girl at the desk was blood red and tearful. The woman banged her fist on the desk, demanded to see a manager, and then had a fit of coughing. She promptly shat herself all through her beige trousers. She didn't hang around after that. Late to the party, but whatever. Back when I worked at a Blockbuster, we'd occasionally deal with thieves. The standard was just to let them go, not endanger employees or customers. One time this guy grabs some stuff and bolts. My manager runs after and points him out to two cops that had parked in our parking lot. They give chase. This guy dodges and weaves through people and traffic. He successfully crosses the street with cops on foot. Desperate to lose them, he jumps down some stairs to gain a lead but breaks both legs. When I was a cashier at Borders, I had this one customer that had either put something on reserve or had special ordered. I remember them getting really rude because I couldn't find it and asked them multiple times what the name was. It eventually turned out that it was placed under her husband's name. So it wasn't my fault I couldn't find it at all. She didn't apologize or anything. So it felt really nice when I swiped her card and it was declined. She felt so embarrassed and just stormed off. I used to work at a bank branch. A client was being very disrespectful to a female staff member. Literally 2 minutes later our bank was robbed at the teller he was using. His $5,000 was taken right off the counter before it could be negotiated. Eventually it was covered by the bank, but at the time I can imagine him being worried. In Hawaii at the resort bar. Kid that looks about 18. I'd have served him. Orders a drink. Barman asks for ID. Hands over ID. Sorry, this is expired. Kid loses his sheet. Insults the barman. Threatens his livelihood. etc. Fast forward 2 days. Sat in the bar at the airport. Same doucher comes in. Orders a drink. Lady behind the bar asks for ID. Hands over ID. She looks at it and goes to hand it back. I pipe up. Check the expiration date. Big dig move. But karma is, as they say, a rick. Worked at a liquor store. Customer came in extremely intoxicated. Couldn't really speak. Stumbling everywhere. We refused to sell to him and he flipped out. Ended up kicking him out with threat of calling the police. He went down the street to another store. And as he walked back past our store he yelled some very mean things at us and immediately tripped, shattering the bottle he bought on the sidewalk. It was a glorious sight.